I'd like to call this meeting to order. If we could all stand, please, for the Pledge of Allegiance. Students, if you could lead us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, I am going to turn the meeting over to Mr. Medancy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As has been custom at the past couple meetings, it's always great to start off with the positive and celebrate our students. And we have two celebrations of excellence this evening. Our first celebration is for three of our students that are on the STEPS Youth Council. And so can we have Katie Kavanaugh, Ava LeBlanc, and Jackie Liebler? Come on up. And if we can have Kristen Sandler come up, please. This group was awarded the Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services Prevention Impact Award as part of our STEPS Youth Council. I don't know if they or Kristen, if you want to come up to the podium and say a few words about their accomplishment.
I would love to, thank you. So I brought with me tonight the actual plaque that they received at the second annual Connecticut Prevention Summit. Not only were the girls presenters at the summit, they ran one of the 8 workshops offered all day to 250 prevention professionals. They were also surprised with this Prevention Impact Award at lunchtime. So I'm just going to read a bit about it. It is an award that recognizes programs that have expanded the reach and effectiveness of prevention efforts in Connecticut, creating models that can inspire and be replicated by others statewide. STEPS Youth Council earned this distinction for their innovative and impactful prevention work, including the It's Not Cheesy to Talk to Your Kids campaign, which encouraged open family conversations about substance use, their legislative advocacy to limit youth access to kratom, a dangerous and unregulated substance, and their leadership in youth prevention, serving as role models and collaborators with young leaders across Connecticut. And we are so lucky to have grant funding that allows Katie, Ava, and Jackie to be student workers, youth peer advocates for Youth Council. And so they were able to be at the conference and accept this on behalf of everyone. But it really is an award for our entire group of around 20 students who meet twice a month to work on prevention campaigns and advocacy efforts. And I couldn't be more proud of them and their representation of our town.
Thank you.
I get the privilege every month of coming to the STEPS meeting and to hear of your work. And to say I'm proud, along with Kristen, that's minimal. The work that you kids do in STEPS, the message that you get out, the message that you give to adults, that you share with us, especially about the kratom, which I was, deer in the headlights. I had no idea. You brought that to us. You brought that to me. We brought it to the board. The impact that you have, you really, truly do not have an idea how wide it is. But I want to say on behalf of the board, thank you. Thank you for the work you do for the town. Thank you for the work that you do for kids. Thank you for the work that we have shared with families. It is immeasurable. So thank you again. And guess what? Come on over. I've got something for you. We're each going to get one of these, but I'm going to read it to Catherine Kavanaugh. Having duly qualified under the standards prescribed by the Southington Public Schools, you are hereby awarded the Certificate of Excellence for Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services Prevention Impact Award. In witness whereof, the seal of the Southington Board of Education and the signature of the Board of Education chairperson and the superintendent of schools are hereunto affixed on this 9th day of October, 2025. And you each will be getting one. So
Thank you very much.
here we go. One for you, one for you. Jackie, one for you.
Thank you.
Would you like to say a few words? I'm not going to put you on the spot.
Yeah, well, let's just say.
All right, go for it.
We came all this way.
All right, go for it.
Yeah, so it's a real pleasure to be able to get to work with the STEPS Coalition. Kristen gives us such great opportunities to be able to actually get our voice out there, so we can't knock her at all. Like, she has to be told about that. And we also are just really grateful that we had a chance to do this conference. It was a really eye-opening experience to see all the people that are involved in prevention throughout our state. And I'm just happy that we get to do this work. So you guys want to say anything?
Yeah. I'm just truly so appreciative, and thank you so much for Kristen, and just being a part of this group has been made so much of a difference. So.
Yeah, and as much as we did, the support we had was super helpful. So thank you, Kristen. We couldn't have done it without you. And I think this isn't the first big thing STEPS has done, and it won't be the last. So yeah, thanks to
Keep
STEPS.
looking up to the future for us.
Yeah.
Well said.
Thank you, guys.
So we're going to have you, we're going to take some pictures before we go to our next celebration. If we could. Do we have any mom and dads here want to take pictures? Come on over. Mom and dads like pictures.
Yeah, Kristen, you should get in one.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, so our next celebration, not to be outdone. A couple weeks back, I was notified that one of our students got Southington's Ellie Lombardi Philanthropist of the Future Award, and I was invited that evening to celebrate in that recognition. It happened to fall on the same evening as our last board meeting, and so feeling badly that we couldn't be part of that celebration, I figured what better way than to bring our winner to a board meeting and we can all celebrate her together. Can I see Addison Rodriguez? The Ellie Lombardi Philanthropist of the Future Award is named after one of United Way of Southington's 2023 Unsung Heroes. Southington's own Ellie Lombardi began her philanthropic journey at just 3 years old, using her birthday to raise funds for her own charity, the Race for Grace Foundation. With support from her parents, the Race for Grace Foundation's annual fundraising car shows have become a Southington tradition, raising thousands of dollars for the community. So the criteria is obviously being a Southington resident, under 18, demonstrating creative approaches to supporting Southington's economic, health, education, social, or environmental issues, showing measurable positive outcomes in their philanthropic efforts, exhibit strong leadership qualities in mobilizing resources and inspiring others, actively collaborate and involve the community in their efforts. I'm listening to all our 21st century skills of our vision of a graduate being put to work here. Display a desire for long-term dedication to philanthropy and community service, and consistently participate in charitable activities. And one last piece, this was from one of her nominations. I am honored to recommend our student beekeeper, Addison Rodriguez, for the Youth Unsung Hero of Southington United Way. Addison is going into her senior year at Southington High School, involved in the Agricultural Science Department. Addison became our student beekeeper 3 years ago and has not turned back. The labor and study required to be an apiary farmer is ongoing. She has been dedicated not only to the in-season work, but in the vibes, but also the off-season. Addison truly understands that the social enterprise aspect of Bread for Life, Southington Honey Company, requires the hives to survive. Addison has come off-season to help in the kitchen and office, doing whatever has been needed on the daily service. She has volunteered at the Soup Night fundraiser as well. I truly believe that Addison understands community and service over self more than your average students and deserves to be recognized. Congratulations, Addison.
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. How did you become interested in bees? Just
I don't know. It's
really interesting. I saw it from someone who
Come on
was-
over here, because they want to be able to hear you.
I saw it from a girl who was doing it in the agriculture program at school, and they needed a beekeeper, and I thought it was really interesting, and I like learning about different things, so it was cool to see the inner workings of the hive.
And to keep going back, and to keep going back, and to keep going back,
Mhm.
and doing this service for our community. What a wonderful, wonderful way to give back as you're learning.
Mhm.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Keep up the good work. Are you going to continue?
Yeah.
Yeah?
I want
Yeah?
to also help in like the future communities I go to when I go to college,
Okay.
communities in Boston or wherever I end up, somewhere else, so I can also help other people.
Awesome, awesome. Don't go anywhere. 'Cause you know we have something for
Thank you.
Okay. It's our certificate of excellence to you, Addison Rodriguez, having duly qualified under the standards prescribed by Southington Public Schools. You are hereby awarded this certificate of excellence for the United Way Southington's Ellie Lombardi Philanthropist of the Future Award. That is so cool. In witness whereof, the seal of the Southington Board of Education and the signature of the Board of Education Chair and the Superintendent of Schools are hereunto affixed this 9th day of October 2025. Keep up the good work
Thank you.
wherever you go, because you know what? You're making a difference. Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You want to say? You can if you want.
Sure.
Okay.
I just want to say thank you to Bread for Life and United Way for giving me all these opportunities to help out within my community, and for the agricultural program for giving me all these people to meet and experiences that I never thought I would have. So thank you very much for this award. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Great job.
All right, we gotta get, come on. Mom and Dad. Come on up. Can't guarantee it, but.
Congratulations.
Okay, we're going to take a 5-minute recess so our board members can congratulate our award winners. And then we'll come back. You don't have to, so you don't feel badly. You do not have to stay for the entire meeting unless you really feel. Whatever I don't
Yes, because, actually, this lady sucks. What?
Too hard for me to get out. Just open that up. Just open that up. Freeze it. Okay. Okay. So motion, and do I have a second with the amendment as amended? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Communications from our student board representatives.
Good evening, board members. To start off our report, this past Tuesday, a dozen or so student athletes from the high school attended the CIAC Sportsmanship Conference. This event brought 670 student athletes from across the state to discuss ways to improve sportsmanship in and off the field. They had speakers including an NBA ref and also a sports reporter from WTNH. In addition, as Mr. Brown keeps on reminding us, the Wall of Honor ceremony will be held at 6 p.m. at the high school, honoring 2 high school alumni. Additionally, yesterday at 6 p.m., the Axi program at the high school hosted their annual fall festival for families and students to come out and celebrate the fall. In addition, on October 16th, the National Honor Society is hosting their annual fall induction, where new members will be recognized and inducted into the society and recognizing their academic and leadership qualities. Also on October 16th, the juniors and sophomores will be taking the PSAT, while freshmen and seniors will be having a 3-hour delay so that the other students can take their PSAT exam. Today, during BCAP advisory, the seniors took their overhead drone photos out on the turf field. On October 21st, the music department will be hosting their annual fall performance at 6 p.m. And this past weekend at the Apple Harvest Parade, Sellington High School was well represented with members from DECA, robotics, marching band, color guard, all showing their school spirit. Thank you.
Thank you, Ethan. To begin with our district reports, to start with the elementary schools, Southton Elementary's first ever color run took place this Friday on October 10th, and they raised up over $1,800 in donations and pledges. Last week, Dahlberg hosted their Special Persons Night, where students were able to bring their parents, grandparents, and any people they wanted for an evening of an ice cream social and to enjoy the book fair. And their annual trunk or treat event will be hosting later this month. The newly formed student leadership team at JFK has begun and is composed of 8 students. Their dynamic and diverse group were selected to meet with the administration to provide perspective, feedback, and suggestions to improve this experience at JFK. And the marching band and color guard performed at the Apple Harvest as well. The morning announcements are full of excitement at JFK, where every Thursday they have a 10-second theme song that's broadcasted in homerooms, and homerooms submit their guesses. The winning homeroom is presented with the Kennedy Cup, and from September 15th to October 15th, JFK recognizes Hispanic influencers as part of the National Hispanic Heritage Month.
So as I learned today when we went outside for the drone picture, it's starting to get really cold. So with that, fall sports seasons are coming to a close. The boys golf team is continuing to play well and has improved to an 11-3 record with victories over Avon and Farmington this week. Additionally, the girls swim team improved to 6-1 with a win over Newington and on Wednesday. And both the boys and girls cross country, whose captains and then the Katie Kavanaugh, who had just left, are still undefeated in divisional meets. The girls soccer team qualified for the state tournament last night with a 1-0 victory to Berlin. The field hockey team celebrated their senior night on Tuesday night, and our football team had a very close 36-30 fourth quarter win on a fourth down winning drive as well, with our backup quarterback as well. And the football team has now defeated Hall High School and will travel to New Britain this coming Friday. The boys soccer team hosted a youth soccer night on Wednesday and collected non-perishable items for Bread for Life in Sellington. So in addition to our regular report, we had an issue that we wanted to bring up. And this was something that me, Ethan, and Archie were talking about yesterday and today. So on October 20th, Diwali, a popular Indian holiday, is celebrated around the world. And this is something that is starting to become more prevalent in our community as we gain more diverse people. Quick couple statistics. 68,000 Indians live in Connecticut as of 2022, and that has definitely increased over time. I know a specific couple neighborhoods in our community are very Indian predominant. They have celebrated a lot of Indian holidays, and schools around Connecticut have made this day off for celebration and observance for this holiday. Ned Lamont on August 27th also made this a state holiday, and I wanted to list off a couple of schools that observed this: Glastonbury, South Windsor, West Hartford, Newington, Farmington, Bristol, Avon, Ellington, Rocky Hill, Trumbull, and Stamford. So these were a couple of schools that I found in our an hour's time, just in Connecticut alone. New Jersey, New York, a ton of states around us have this day off. So this is more than just a day off for students, but this is a day where Jewish folks, Muslim folks, they also have these religious holidays, and we wanted to bring this to attention, starting off with one of the more popular holidays that is recognized here around town. Thank you for your time, and I would love to hear your comments.
Thank you for sharing those.
I would just be curious. What is it you're looking for? Potentially a day of no school or a celebration in school, or what? How do these other places do that?
So in other towns, the 10 towns that I just listed off, they have a day off for observance. Our town graciously offers us the opportunity to take the day off, and they will not be counted against them.
Yeah.
However, as a high school student, I know for a fact, I think Ethan and Archie could attest to this, missing a day is like missing a week in some scenarios. The higher up you go in classes, the more accelerated you get in classes. Missing an hour and 30 minutes, and it's unlike the schedule we had before where it was just 45 minutes. Now it's an hour 30. Now you just missed possibly half of your week's curriculum. And making that up is a burden on the teacher, on the student, and what these schools offer is a day to not worry about that, giving the opportunity for the town and those people that observe the holiday to observe the holiday.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions? I think this is something that we could talk to the administration about. I know there's a concern that there's various religions that have holidays. What does that do impact-wise as far as attendance throughout the, people take off if it's a religious holiday. However, we have to go to school 180 days. So when do we come to school? If we take that day off, we have to give up another day. So I think it's a balancing thing that we have to look at, but it's something that we can look at again. We do have notices to the teachers, and I believe this was part of their professional development, that nothing is, no tests are supposed to be given, nothing is supposed to be, you shouldn't be penalized for taking the day off, in other words. But this is something we can look into again.
One final thing. I was talking to a student today that observes a different type of holiday. He's Muslim. And another kid last week, Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur were 2 holidays. And these kids miss 2 days a week, 2 days of that week, and somebody will be missing another week thereafter. And these things do put a burden on the students. I know this board cares deeply about the mental health of our students, and the more diverse our community is becoming, the more a factor it becomes for our students. And these towns have started to kind of implement that strategy. So that is something that it starts with a popular holiday like Diwali, but it should extend to other religions, other cultures in the future.
Okay,
Thank you.
okay, thank you. Yeah.
If I could just mention one thing, I think it would be interesting to compare some of those school districts and essentially like when they start, when they finish. Just to echo, because I think we had this discussion.
A few years, it was a
couple
few years,
ago?
yeah, it was a few years ago.
Again, like I think it kind of sets the precedent. I don't want to come across as being negative, but again, like I come from a healthcare background. We in the hospital culture and the medical culture, illness doesn't celebrate holidays. It doesn't take a day off, and it's around the clock. So again, it's part of that is seeing how some of my friends have been able to observe their holidays and finding coverage. If they're a surgeon, making sure that their patients have coverage and things like that. If anything, I think this. While I want to say that I wish we could give days off to all the important holidays that our community feels that are important. I also think that, again, I assume you don't want to be going to school around the whole entire year either. So it's, really a delicate balance of trying to figure out, okay, like, well, what can we do to, again, you're not supposed to, your teachers shouldn't be giving you tests. You know, this is a policy that we essentially really dug into a couple of years ago when we had this discussion. So, you know, if you don't feel that, you know, the students that voice this concern are getting that, we need to know about that so that our superintendent or administration team can address that. Because even though that I agree with you, if you miss a day, you miss a week, right? Especially in block scheduling. It shouldn't be
shouldn't
that
impact,
way.
yeah.
Like we should really be making sure that we're following policy and procedure, you know, while we look into how we can maybe make an amending of this. So.
Okay. All right, thank you, students. Communication from Board of Education
I think
members.
Mr. Darrenowski had a comment.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Darrenowski.
I think we have a procedure in which the superintendent submits to the board a calendar. And over the years, I know that we've had different scenarios, you know, 3 or 4 different calendars that are presented, and then each one has got, you know, supporters of some, you know, of either 1, 2, 3, 4 different calendars. So I think to not get away from what we've done in the past, but use that to our benefit and possibly get the input from staff, students.
So the process that we have followed is you all see the first iterations of, and then it gets sent out to the entire community, the staff and families,
Right.
and then any feedback that anybody has gets sent back to my office. I compile all of that feedback, even individual, not synthesized, but in its individual form, onto one document for you all, so that you're able to see all the feedback that was given back from the community prior to adopting the calendar for the following year.
And on that calendar, and it was 3 or 4 years ago, it was added, religious holidays are in the corner. They show all the religious holidays of, you know, the various faiths, so that people are aware that these are potential days for students to be absent from school if they're celebrating that particular holiday.
Right, but to his point, you know, if
Yeah,
he takes a day off
yeah.
and if there's something
It's
going on, the
Yeah.
student actually misses out on the, either presenting an assignment or participating in the
You know,
class activity.
yeah. So it's something we can look into again. So, thank you. Okay. Communication from board members. Mr. Brown, I'm not even looking, I'm just gonna say, Mr. Brown.
The last time,
What's the over-under, Ethan? What's the over-under?
I just checked the calendar. The ceremony is the day before our next board meeting, so this is your last time. But on October 22nd, we are having at 6 o'clock the Wall of Honor induction at the high school. It's open to the public. It's a free ceremony. We're honoring Chris Palmieri, who's the principal of DePaulo, and Bill Pesch, who's a doctor at the Hospital for Special Care, and 2 wonderful people, and you're all invited, and you won't have to hear that again for who knows how long.
Okay. Any other board members?
I
Mr.
just wanted to comment on the celebration today. And one of the comments the young lady made was, this is not the first big thing that STEPS has done, and it's not the last big thing STEPS will do. And I went over and I said to them, you're right, it's true. They do a lot of big things they've done and they will continue to do. But they're the representatives. They're coming up. They're the ones that are standing up, putting themselves out there and making a difference, not only for them, but for the students that they are representing and that they're serving. They're making a difference. People are making a difference. Addison's making a difference. And it makes you feel good to see what our students are actually doing. STEPS, right? Such an important program. How are you helping other students in your community? It's just, we need more of that. We need more people that are philanthropic, that want to do things to make things better. That's one. This is, and by the way, this is an example of what you guys are supposed to be doing, right? You have an issue, something that comes up that you're representing all of our students. Bring those things up, continue to bring those things up, because now you see it started a dialogue, there's more dialogue to come. Don't stop there. Keep bringing the things that concern the students at all of our schools to us so that we could hear them and discuss them and figure out what the right things to do are. And lastly, today is an important day. Today is Mr. Darrenowski's birthday. Dave came here for his birthday today, and this is a celebration for Dave. So happy birthday, Mr. Darrenowski.
Happy birthday, Dave.
Don't look so happy. Don't look
Oh.
so happy.
This is your birthday song. It is a very long. Hey, happy birthday, Dave.
I sang to him already and promised I wouldn't do it again at the meeting. I
I hope not.
no. Happy birthday, Mr. Garanowski, and
How's
many
it feel to
more.
be 60? Pretty good.
I can't remember.
Okay. Okay.
Can we move on, please?
Okay, any other board, does any other board member have anything? No? All right, moving on to the administration, Mr.
Thank you, Madam
Bedancy.
Chair. I had the opportunity last week to visit the Plantsville Congregational Church and the Operation Stay Warm that they have housed there. Southington Community Services and Rosemary Salerno. It's not the first year, but it's amazing just how much effort goes into it in preparation. The amount of coats, scarves, hats, gloves that are distributed to families in our community, students and adults, not just the children. Our homeless liaison, Ken Seltzer, was able to go down he's, for our families with McKinney-Vento, and he was able to kind of connect already families that we know have needs, and all of our school social workers as well, when we know there are families with needs, and can quietly connect those families to the resources. And it's one of those things that not only do they take gently used coats and dry clean them, but now it's to the point now many of the community organizations are just donating brand new garments to the cause, and they're all housed there. So there's all sizes, and again, my message is that it's not just for students, it's for anybody in the community, adults as well. I will be in the Rotary booth tomorrow night for doing our annual French fry selling, and then again on Sunday. It takes usually about 5 showers to not smell like a French fry after that weekend, but Rotary is a great organization. They do a lot for the community as well. The barn project, just a little excitement on that. We have pretty much everything finalized in terms of planning and design, architecture. We're at the stage now where we're going to issue the RFP to a company that's willing to come and build it. Now, it's prefabricated, so we know it's more of a kit, but everything is done there, and it's about issuing the RFP. We probably won't start the build until the spring, but there's some slight hope of maybe getting the concrete pad poured before the winter. But stay tuned, it's progressing. And then last night, I had a great opportunity at UConn Waterbury to attend the Dyslexia Awareness Collaborative Kickoff. It was hosted at UConn Waterbury campus. Two amazing keynote speakers. One was Dion Butler, former professional football player for the Detroit Lions, who really told his story of from grade school all the way through college and into the NFL, only reading at a 4th grade level. And it actually ended up being his curse in his professional football career because he couldn't read the playbook, but always masked his dyslexia and made it with his talent. And to the point, once he was finally cut for the 3rd time, he decided to try and tackle it. He actually didn't know what he had his whole life. When he decided that to tackle it and figured out what it was, one of the most inspiring parts of his keynote at the end was that he had learned in time to read in time to read to his daughter. And he was showing video of him reading to his daughter nightly. So it was a truly touching keynote. And then there was someone, Dr. Fumiko Heft, and she's the campus dean and chief administrator officer at the University of Connecticut, Waterbury campus. Extremely accomplished, 2 decades of research in learning dyslexia. She had awards such as the Society for Neuroscience Science Educator Award, honors from the International Dyslexia Association, and the Connecticut Technology Council for Women in Innovation. And just some of the statistics that she shared that's really, I think, trying to launch off the awareness campaign. This is an awareness kickoff for families and communities and districts. There's an idea that about 5 to 10% of our student population in the state of Connecticut may have dyslexia and not diagnosed. And out of 12,000 students, 652, only 4,188 have actually been identified, which is only 0.8%. So there's quite a few students out there that have this disability and it's not being identified. Another stat that was interesting was of all the learning disorders, the dysgraphia, dyscalculia, and dyslexia, 80% of those learning disorders are dyslexia. Another important piece, which I think we're all understanding, is the early intervention piece and how it's 4 times more effective. And for each year that you don't intervene, if there's a 25 to 50% diminished effectiveness on that intervention. So clearly critical. Some of the screening and progress tools that districts can use, they're 60 to 80% accurate in terms of risk predictors for dyslexia. There's a huge genetic component that comes with dyslexia in terms of it being hereditary. So if you had a family member, a parent specifically that had it, there's a much higher chance that a child may have it. And then just from the financial perspective, for every dollar spent on prevention of students with dyslexia or early intervention, there's $16 of a return on that investment, because as we know, if you don't intervene early and the supports continue to perpetuate there on out, it'll be costly for district long term. So very informative. This kickoff campaign, it was only the first one, so they have a series of events that's occurring each month. And so myself, Stephanie Lawler, Amy Battaglia, and Amy Pager, her new assistant, were all able to attend, and it was just time well spent. That concludes my report for this evening.
Okay. Any questions of the superintendent? Okay. Next, communication from the public on agenda items only. No? Okay. Committee reports, policy and personnel.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So we had our meeting Tuesday, September 30th, which we discussed a couple of different things. So the first one, it was brought to our attention, or just for review, our policy 6173, enrollment in advanced course program and challenging curriculum. As you know, we have a number of very motivated students, and even with the great course offerings that we have at the high school, sometimes just timing doesn't work for certain students or what have you. So it was brought to our attention to try and give credit to those college level courses if they're taking college level courses at a community college or what have you. After reviewing it, we didn't make any changes to the policy. Part of it is it's difficult to have to review every single college course. So that's specifically why we work with a UConn, a Tunxus, to be able to offer something that, number one, our staff is teaching, so we know exactly the curriculum that they're following. But if it's not something that we teach, trying to go back and look at the curriculum. So we felt that the policy should be kept the way that it is and be reviewed at the discretion of our assistant superintendent and superintendent on a case-by-case, whether or not, there's anything that we can do.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, sure thing.
I would think that would be a CNI issue. That should have come to the curriculum rather than the policy committee.
It would have to come to the policy committee first, because basically what's happening is, so it's not an actual issue with our curriculum. So it would be our reviewing of the other school's curriculum to see if it would meet our level of execution.
We do that in curriculum when the courses come to us. That's why when I read this, I thought.
But it's not something that we'd be offering the students.
Mr. Pepe
Yeah,
wants to.
if I may,
Yeah.
we enter into agreements with universities, colleges, in order to teach the college level courses. Our teachers teach those courses.
Right.
So this conversation had to do with whether or not, on what scenarios does the grade, because we give credit, but in not all scenarios is the GPA impacted.
Right.
So it wasn't a discussion about curriculum as much as it was about procedurally, how does the inner workings of credit-bearing courses and GPA work together?
Okay, I still think it belonged in CNI. That's my own opinion about that, because we have discussed in the past, Frank, and you've been at most of the meetings with Bob and I, when there are college credit courses, Amy will present them to us, okay? And we have to approve them, okay?
But there's nothing to approve. These are courses that we don't offer and that we're not planning
Right,
to
I
offer.
understand that,
But it's a matter of if, because realistically, the biggest argument that, you know, again, like we discussed amongst ourselves on the committee, was we don't know, again, a UConn teaches our staff member, which is then essentially
Right.
brought to you guys for approval that this is a college level course and we're gonna treat it as such for the GPA. The problem with, and this is, you know, again, like anatomy at a Tunxus Community College might be different than UConn's anatomy course, which is different than Central Connecticut's anatomy course. So there's really nothing curriculum to present to the curriculum committee outside of the fact of we're trying to figure out, can we weigh this as a course or not? If we can't, then there's nothing to present. Right.
It was a review of the policy itself that is already adopted. It was not a review of any curriculum.
And the policy was not changed.
The policy was not changed.
We reviewed it, but again, there's really, after discussion, there was really nothing that we could do to change it. Let's see, next one, and again, I'm more than happy to talk after the meeting as well about it. Policy 3541, transportation. We just made language changes to update it to current regulations that reflect language in the state statute. Policy 5121.3, academic dishonesty. This was a review of what was adopted on January 2025. And then these were part of the developing of the regulations. Regulations 5121.3 were reviewed, to which we had a pretty extensive discussion about the challenges of AI being utilized as a tool versus being used as an instead of students using their own cognitive and synthesis of information. We essentially charged the administration to continue the work with each level of schooling because, you know, it's something that we're starting to see it. I mean, you just use Google now and it creates an AI response, right? So we're trying to give the administration a little bit of oversight into, you know, how to deal with each grade up to the high school. And that's going to be an ongoing evaluation. The next policy we reviewed, policy 5131.911, Connecticut School Climate, which replaces policy 5130 and 5130.1. And this was to accurately reflect the new definition of bullying. Regulations were developed using the model offered by CABE, reviewed over the summer during the administrative retreat. The final draft climate plans from each school is due to central office by December 31st. These plans will be presented to the Personnel and Policy Committee for review in January. As we were discussing this particular sheet, again, it's pretty boilerplate. It was what was recommended by CABE, but there was a bit of concern in regards to anonymity when you're making a complaint. So as a committee, we tasked administration to kind of keep track of how many of those anonymous complaints versus those that, you know, name themselves. Again, there's nothing, it's more to follow up than anything.
We would get a mid-year report on any bullying instances that were reported.
Correct, and that would be, I mean, we're gonna get a report on that regardless. It was just more of my concern is when you have anonymity,
I know,
people
hard
tend
to
to
do.
just,
I know.
again, like, make a complaint and then disappear back into the void. So we wanna make sure that we're able to accurately follow up and make sure that meaningful changes or, you know, addressing the actual climate are made. Policy 5121.21, administering medication. This policy was reviewed and reflects recent legislation which allows for the administration of glucagon and epinephrine via nasal spray. Basically it was vetted by the district's head of nursing, and a couple of things were changed as far as discussions about injections and things like that. So it's more cleaning up of the language, no huge differences in that particular policy. The job description for therapy department lead was presented as a stipend, rather than, I think it was a little bit different prior to. So now that we have an opening for a department lead, we thought it was a good time to make those changes, and is brought in line with Southington's current SEA contract. The other thing that we did was review dates for policy and personnel committees for the meetings for 2025 through 2026 school year, which we all tentatively agreed on, and then we adjourned our meeting. So that was again, pretty informative meeting. We had a lot of great discussion, especially when it came to AI. But I don't know if any of my other colleagues have anything to add.
I was just going to say, I thought it was a great meeting. It was a lot of meaty subjects, and I think the AI discussion was quite eye-opening because everybody's using it, and now we're getting to the point where it's going to change the paradigm of education, where are you going to grade the paper based on how it's written, or are you going to figure out how was the thought process and grade and judge the thought process that the student put into it? Because we were talking, old AI used to be you reach up and get the encyclopedia off the shelf, right? Now you could just put your stuff in there and boom, it spits out your report. So things are changing dramatically on that. And then the school climate one I thought was also very important because it's become such a big issue these days, right? And I think there's a lot more coming out of that. But I thought it was a great meeting.
Could
Any
I
other
ju-
comments? Yeah,
Yeah.
Mr. Brown.
I was just looking into the AI thing and the chat. I teach a course at the library, and I was looking into some of that. And what I was shocked to find out, it's not always accurate.
No.
It bases on what it collects, and it can collect inaccurate information and then write out something that looks wonderful and sounds wonderful, and it's AI, so it must be true, but it's not always. So one of the things to look at to teach is to how to discern truth from, and that's a complicated one, but that's another issue.
It's another tool.
It's a tool,
But it's a
not
tool,
one
but
we can- Right.
is it perfect? No. Do we know how to use it properly? Probably not yet, but because it's a new tool, so we have to figure out what is its place in the realm of education. How can we use it? And how can we use it properly and teach students how to use it properly?
But it's important to remember that it is a tool, but I don't think it's cheating to use a tool.
No.
Right, so we have to that paradigm
that whole
change,
thing.
right? That's where
That
it
all
becomes
has
very
to be-
difficult. Because that would be the same as saying it's cheating using an encyclopedia, or it's cheating using online resources, right?
Zach, you want to?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, obviously, as a younger member, I mean, that's been pretty much prevalent throughout the last few years of my education. I will say it is a tremendous tool. Going to Bob's point, it's great for studying when you want to learn a concept, but at the same time, it feeds you inaccuracies and stuff. And obviously, my school where I go to college, they have a whole robust AI policy, but there's even features that they're sort of, back and forth on. It's a very much so an evolving concept in education. I think it's definitely something that, we should focus a lot
Can I
on.
address what you just said? One of the things I was reading about was someone had asked a question of AI, and it started doing legal cases. Some of the cases were made up. They were not actual cases.
Really?
And yet they're being used in argument, because now there's a trend apparently for people in court, instead of hiring a lawyer, to go to AI and think that's going to argue it. And then it turned out one of these people cited cases that weren't real cases, that AI had claimed were real.
That is absolutely correct. I mean, I'm at the law school. We've heard that story plenty of times, that, he probably got disbarred, I think, or something like that, but there's
Called
definitely.
hallucinations.
Yes.
AI hallucinations, yeah.
Correct.
Oh, boy. To be continued. Yeah, Mr. Carson.
Right, and just one comment to the conversation, right, is
garbage in, garbage out. The challenge with AI is, back to the legal case, is the ability to reference. Okay, we all know this from our own educations and even currently in your education, Zach, that when you produce a paper, absolutely use reference materials and tools to produce your thoughts or your argument. The problem with AI is the inability to reference where that information is coming from. So until we figure that out as a society with technology, it's going to be a problem. And that's,
Yeah. Valid point. Mr. Darrenowski.
The era of black and white has turned gray.
Yeah.
And gray now is
Huge.
so wide that it's going to be so difficult for educators to differentiate between, what's truly a honestly presented paper, and that is generated by pushing a button. So,
But to that point, and again, too, Zaya made a couple of very good points, and it's not so much, again, it's here, right? It's not going away, but I think you put it in a way of, it's not so much that teachers have to worry about plagiarism, it's going to be more of teachers are going to have to test differently to see how their students understand the material, right? So again, like at the end of the day, like when you're starting to put people on the spot, like you'll be able to tell if a program spat out all the information. The other thing that was kind of interesting, and this is more information. It's estimated that at least 70% of the comments on Reddit, so essentially that's where you pose a question and then something kicks back in answer, 70% of them are actually not human produced. They're actually bot derivatives. So essentially you have AI feeding your AI information. And that's where you get into these issues where, they're quoting these legal proceedings that never actually happened. So it's one of those things where, again, like I know our students too, it's a valuable tool to be able to look things up in a hurry. But I mean, again, I have patients that say, well, I put all my information into ChatGPT and it said that I should be on this medication, and I should be doing this. And you start to like look at it and it's like, this is recommending like 5 times normal amount of sodium, for you to manage your hypotensive issues. And again, like that could be deadly. You could essentially really mess yourself up. So it's very.
but your comeback, Joe, would be good luck.
Well, but again, but you want to try and educate people, right? We're the Board of Education. We're trying to teach people how to use these sources. Again, like I always tell my kids, if you read a headline and it immediately makes you feel a certain way, you should go in with very much curiosity to try and understand, like, well, what is it? Like, is it actual factual information, or are they just trying to get a rise out of you? And again, like, when we live in such a polarized society, this is just another example of that's fine if you get the information, but, how are you sourcing the information it gives you?
And I think this might be, we could have a future because I think we could go on for a while with this. This may be something that we look into.
It's a nice agenda item.
Yeah, it would be a good agenda item because
Very good agenda.
it would be.
Either that or a special meeting.
Okay, well, we could, it would be
here.
something we can
We
look
have to
into
look.
because we need to,
I didn't mean to belabor it either. So
yeah, no, but it is something we do need to look into further. Looking for a motion on the personnel reports.
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Town government communications, Mr. Medancy? Getting back to your chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I have no town government communications this evening, but I
But we do have a
old
strategic
business.
plan.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Oh,
You did have something, though, that you wanted?
So I'm going to go back to, I was just helping her with the
Oh.
technical issue for a sec,
Oh.
sorry. Let me go back to where we were at. Yes, town government communications, no, but under old business, but I do have the strategic plan presentation if you are ready.
Yes, we are
Okay,
ready.
thank you. So I'm proud to introduce to you this evening our final iteration of the Southington Public Schools strategic plan. Just to provide some history to folks, the board authorized this to begin right around not the last budget, but the beginning of the budget cycle prior, when we started to talk about assumptions and priorities and how it was a very ritualistic approach to it each year, and we didn't really refer back to it often once we adopted them. They didn't often change from year to year, maybe one or two would. And so this board had the thought process of, if we truly want to take these assumptions and priorities to drive the work, then let's, take the time to find out what those priorities should be. And so through a very comprehensive process, I believe each one of you were even individually interviewed by Dr. Lemons at various points in time. Over 3,000 survey responses, which is, if you know survey returns, that's unheard of, and so it's tremendous. Focus groups, I would say dozens and dozens across different groups, every sector of the district, whether it was the community sector, the parent sector, all of our different bargaining unit sectors, and the students as well. It was a comprehensive process to gather all the feedback and start to synthesize that and narrow it down to something that was manageable. Sometimes you might realize districts have strategic plans that are so dense and cumbersome that, the priorities actually get lost within the pages. And so I think it was important to have, it narrowed down to something we could all agree upon. At the end of the presentation, there's a group of folks, our steering committee, who really put in a ton of work and provided a lot of input, which was representative. There were parents on it, there were teachers on it, administrators, of the final product. And so I want to thank all of those folks. You'll see their names at the end for all the time they put in, to take all this information and put it into tonight's final product. What I'll share with you tonight is the content of this presentation is the most important piece. If and when it's adopted, I plan on taking it somewhere where it can be formatted and be a lot more professionally marketed, if you will, in terms of something that's maybe a 2-page placard and things that can be displayed and easily things that we can be proud of in terms of work we're doing and accomplishments that we're making. And so, I'm thinking that this is the first time you're seeing this tonight. I didn't expect there to be any motion or action. It was truly just a presentation. Purposely not expecting any action until the next board meeting, so that if there are questions or thoughts that you have between tonight and the next board meeting, you could go through me, and between myself and Dr. Lemons, we can address that. But just for the ease of time tonight and sake of time, we just want to get started. One small technical issue, folks that are streaming can see right now, like the meeting, but the touch screen in the back room is frozen, and so she can't switch cameras. So the meeting is still being streamed and recorded, so folks will be able to refer back to the presentation at a different time, but the direct feed is not there for them to see this presentation. So we will make sure this is posted as well as part of tonight's meeting.
Okay, so just before, we're going to hold all our questions. If you have questions, write them down, and then we'll forward them all through you?
Yes.
Filter them? Okay, so we'll do that. Okay.
Dr. Lemons, all yours.
Dr. Lemons.
Thank you, Superintendent. Board, it's always a joy to travel to Southington. I think it's been a couple of decades of work that I've done on and off with Southington, and it was bittersweet today because as I was driving down Main Street, I was reminded of the cost of being out of state last week and this coming week on business, because it's the Apple Harvest Festival, and so I found myself driving, that's what's going, of course, it's October. It's that time of year. It's a real honor to be here really representing the steering committee that has been at work for this for over a year, trying to hear the perspectives of the community inside and outside the school district to try to make sense of where the district is and where it wants to go. When I was last with you in the spring, we were bringing to you the initial results of the first couple of phases, where we talked about the process that we had been using. We shared some of the artifacts, basically, that we'd already started to create and form that would become part of telling the story of Southington Public Schools and where it is going. And we had gotten to a place of articulating a small number of strategic priorities that the steering committee, on behalf of the broader community, thought these are the areas that the district really should be focusing on. And those are areas of assets that you wanted to get better at and areas that you wanted to improve on, and both were represented. It's worth noting, and I think I've said this to this board before, that this was not a deficit strategic planning process, and I've been in part of those. This was really a celebration of all that has been going on well, and trying to answer the question, what's the next level of work for this district? And I don't say that just to blow smoke. It was the perspective of people inside the system. It was the perspective of students. It was the perspective of community members. It was the perspective of parents that yes, there's more work to do, but this was a very special community. It's a very special school district, and I think that the strategic plan represents that. Since we were last with you, we have dug into those strategic priority areas and have identified a relatively small number of action items that were not detailed action items, but broad strategic areas that, if we're going to pursue the strategic priority, have to get done. And per your suggestion, the last time we were together, we've tried to attach broad timelines to those. We've attempted to identify measures and metrics that can give us a sense of whether we're making progress, both in terms of implementation, but also in terms of impact. And so you'll see when we get to those areas a number of the actions that the members of the steering committee, plus more experts from within inside the district that work in those specific areas, who brought their expertise to it and tried to identify this is the most important work, and we imagine this would happen before this, which would happen before this, and here's how we're going to know. And those were hard conversations, and they happened in the late spring. They happened in a little bit in the summer, and we picked it back up in the fall. And you're also going to see in tonight's an articulation of how the plan actually gets used. And I think that's an important piece, because sometimes plans, there's a lot of hoopla in creating them, and they just sit around gathering dust. And the steering committee and the superintendent put a lot of effort into identifying how will we put this in practice? What are the timelines we use? What are the routines and rituals that we will put in place to keep the system in contact with the strategic plan and iterating the strategic plan over time so it stays fresh and it stays focused. I'm not going to I know you really want me to read the 300 words in 8-point font that are on some of these pages to you word by word. I'm going to try to stay at a very broad level. I'm going to try to explain kind of how some of these pages are laid out conceptually. And then if questions emerge, we can try to tackle those in the meantime. So we're just beginning with the vision of a graduate. This is work that was already in place, and it's an important part of your story in Southington, and it actually emerged quite a bit when we were doing a stock taking of the organization. So we just thought we'd put that right up in front. It's a part of the vision of the entire district. Again, I think the superintendent addressed this. The ultimate format of this will, it may actually have multiple formats. You could have a web-based format, it could be a PDF, but here are some of its components, parts, and for the purpose of tonight and for the purpose of holding it until we clean it up and kind of render it through a kind of a communications campaign. You'd probably have a starting document like this that explains to the reader what is this document, how was it created, what's its purpose, because not everyone is familiar with the strategic plan. And so we were just trying to be very clear about what we're trying to do. We're also trying to build some excitement for the reader who's trying to figure out how do I enter into this document that can feel a little dense if you weren't a part directly of building it. We tried to give people a sense of what was the process. We didn't just lock ourselves into a closet over a weekend and hammer out a plan. In fact, it had phases and stages, and it began with a stock take, and there was quite a bit of community engagement, and that community engagement was the data and fodder for a steering committee that has met and met and met and wrangled and created strategic priorities, created the artifacts, then doubled down into the strategic priorities and created actions, and then ultimately got to a place of working on how do we implement and how do we monitor over time. We also wanted to give people a sense of all the many people whose voices were captured in this, the community, parents, students, educators broadly defined inside the system who lent their time, their energy, their passion about Southington Public Schools, and we captured that through a variety of mechanisms. One of the things that we built out of the ideas of the community was that this is a district that stands for many things, and a collection of rather coherent ideas and values. And we wanted to capture that. And here's a visual representation of this, and we could do this kind of line by line and list them out, but this is a place-holding visual created by my team, but it gives you a sense of some of the big core ideas and core values that emerged over and over again in interviews and in focus groups and within the steering committee over time. And they range from putting students first to deep collaboration to empowering educators. And I think you'll see that those ideas carry into the strategic priorities and the actions within those strategic priorities. This is that exact same collection of ideas, just represented differently in a list. And you've seen these before. These have not changed since the last time I was before you. We also created a list of strategic priorities. And again, what we have here are 6 very broad areas that through discourse, through dialogue, through evidence gathering, the community said, let's work on these. These are the big rocks that need to move. Yes, there might be smaller rocks, but these are the big rocks. And some of those smaller rocks fit within these larger ones. High quality teaching and learning, student social emotional learning and student well-being, talent management and workforce stability, communications, engagement, community partnerships, school facilities and infrastructure, special education systems and structures. What you have here is, I think, a rather high leverage collection of focal areas. It doesn't tell you yet what you're doing within these, but this creates a pretty broad framework that is focused on the right things. It was clear within the community that you wanted to talk about facilities, even if it's hard to talk about facilities. You wanted to talk about facilities and put that as something. It was clear that fostering communications in a day and age where technology is changing, just as you've been talking, and continuing this deep community that you have around you and its connection with education was important. And then high quality teaching and learning, number one variable that we have control over in the schoolhouse in affecting student outcomes. Student social emotional learning and well-being, a critical part of the equation now. We have more evidence over the last 20 years of how important this is. Talent management, this connects right back to the first two and how critical this is. You can make links to your talent pool directly to outcomes for kids and the quality of care that you're providing for young people. And also, there was a special attention kind of towards the end of making sure that the systems that you're building around special education services are efficient and effective, and you're serving all students who might have special needs effectively. Again, this is another representation, knowing that ultimately when you want to communicate this to other audiences, you're going to want to have tools, you're going to have visuals, you're going to want to have metaphors, you're going to want to have ways of bringing people into the conversation and not hitting them with 1,000 slides that are long lists, because you want to invite people into a story about Southington Public Schools. Now, this is the first one. I'll walk you through the format of this, but all 6 basically follow this format. The strategic priorities laid out at the top. The steering committee split into subcommittees, and we leveraged the varying levels of interest and expertise within the steering committee, and we also brought in folks who might not have been a part of the steering committee, but who are experts within the districts in particular topic areas. And we knew that they would be carrying the work, or they needed to inform the work. We brought them in, and they kind of locked themselves down and asked, what's the work that we have to do to deliver on this charge of this larger priority? What have we heard from the community, and what do we know to be true? And we identified strategic actions in this. And if you just look at we'll look at the first one as representative. The steering committee and the subcommittee said, okay, if we're going to work on high quality teaching and learning, having a robust, viable curriculum is critically important. So what do we need to do? Well, we need to review and update the formal curriculum revision process, make sure that it is aligned with policies, and make sure that it is consistent with how we want to approach continuous improvement in teaching and learning. So it's an articulation of wanting to almost do another study. But there was this clear agreement that this was one of the building blocks to having effective high-quality teaching and learning in every classroom, and there were other pieces then built out. Across the rows, you see in that second column an effort to try to attach to a department or a role the work that has to happen. This doesn't mean that it's entirely on, in this case, the Office of Curriculum and Instruction to deliver. But they're the captains of that office, has to champion this work. This is the office that has to organize and prioritize this work and has to bring in other people when necessary to execute this work. There's also an effort to try to pin down rough timelines, knowing that things can change. You know, the pandemic taught us that, if nothing else, that sometimes we have to pivot on a dime. But we try to take stock of the work that was already laid out, take stock of the rhythms of the year, and have a sense of how long would that take and what needs to happen before the other. At the bottom of the page, in that very last row, is an effort to identify how we're going to know. And we're really asking that question in a broad sense. Sometimes we're talking about how well are we implementing this? Did we get is the task rather technical and it's either done or not? And so sometimes you're going to see measures that, or do we complete this plan, or do we complete the task? Sometimes they are proxy measures. They are, or leading indicators. They're indicators that might move. They're not the ultimate indicator that you want to move, but we think that they're attached to that ultimate indicator. And sometimes they're impact measures that we're trying to look at. And what you see is kind of a collection. This is a way of having almost a balanced scorecard approach, where there are multiple measures for each of these. And here you have everything from progress on state accountability index to curriculum evaluation tool results on an annual basis. And we have that for strategic priority 2, 3, 4, and 5. So for each of those, there's an articulation again of the key work that would have to be done over the next 5 years, or next six. Over the next several years, phased and staged well. When that likely to be done, the roles or the departments that are responsible for captaining that work, championing that work, and ultimately measures of progress. On this slide, what we tried to do is bring all of those measures into a single place, have a single touch point. So for those folks who are really wanting to know, well, are you making any progress? And where are you looking to? Or are you just talking about work that you're doing to feel good about it? Here are a collection of all the many measures, and you'll see, again, different types: impact, implementation, process, based upon the level of work, and ultimately to produce a kind of balanced and healthy sense of how well are we doing as a system. We also wanted to spend time making sure that the strategic plan that you charged us to build, ultimately we put to use. And we began to think about, well, how does it link up to a rhythm in the school year that will make it relevant to people inside the school system? And so in the fall, there will be goals set with the board and you. Central office and building administrators will build goals out of your goals, which will be linked to the strategic planning, strategic priorities. Teachers then, you can see it's a cascading set of goal setting processes that take you from the work that you'll do with the superintendent all the way down into classrooms. And then there's timelines for when you will hear updates, mid-year and also at the end of the year, and then repeating the process on an annual basis. I'm going to ask the superintendent, if he doesn't mind, to step into this one, because this was another conceptualization that goes hand in glove with the previous slide, but doesn't have the timelines in, but kind of gives you a visual representation, conceptual representation of how the improvement process might work and how the strategic plan might be brought into action.
Thank you, Dr. Lemons. So this graphic to me represents, when we call it a strategic plan, how are we being strategic and intentional with the work that we're doing? And what you see at the base of that, this is the foundation of all the work, this plan. It'll serve as, essentially the guiding document for our priorities each year. When I bring you my goals now each fall, you're going to see that they're derived from the strategic plan. When you guys typically adopt my goals as your goals and we continue to make that the priorities throughout the year, there's your through line. Now, broadly, those three circles above are the drivers, if you will, that are pretty much any of the priorities might fall within. So facilities, for example, might be the strategic plan, priority 5. Programs might be something related to priority 2, whether it's social, emotional health or well-being, or special education systems and structures, whether it's programs. Budget, we understand that in terms of the staffing of the alignment levels, the professional development that we're offering, and a lot of the work that's needed to accomplish some of the priorities. And then teaching and learning, I'm a little bit biased, but I feel like it does stand on its own. It's one of those things that is really at the forefront of everything we do. It doesn't necessarily capture those 4 circles right above strategic plan. It doesn't mean the circle they're pointing at is the only circle that they're going to be focused on. They could really, depending, I'll say central office, for example. Mr. Romano is central office, but he might be focusing on facilities in any given year, whereas Mrs. Mellett might be focusing more on budget. And so, just because it represents it that way, it doesn't mean that that's the only through line that exists. So this might be fleshed out a little further as we get more renderings. But at the end of the day, from the base, the foundation of all the work, our strategic plan, through all of the stakeholder groups and the priorities, the goal is improved outcomes for students. I mean, that should drive everything we do. And so I try to represent it that way with that hierarchy so you can see the through lines that exist. So when teachers are at their goal setting meetings, it's not a random goal that happens to be the principal's priority that year. That's pulled from something that the district has identified as a priority, and it doesn't shift year to year. One of the things we always talked about I can tell you this from experience as a teacher, sometimes what was the flavor of the year in terms of what we were going to focus on each year, and that can be frustrating for teachers. For them to know what lies ahead and why we're doing this and why it's important as a community is helpful for teachers because it provides them a lot of context and direction. And I would say the same goes for our administrators. For them to know in advance what they should be thinking about when they have that summer to finally plan and think and reflect, it really helps them to get out ahead of it so that when the teachers return each fall, they're ready to articulate what portions of the plan are relevant to them. So again, this is just an iteration, a rendering that we'll work up to improve upon, but as I try to roll this out to the district once it's finally adopted, I want to try and help them understand how it actually works in their world, how it actually applies to them. I've seen very jargony, dense documents in the past that the teacher really doesn't know how it connects to the work they're doing, and I think that's an injustice to our teachers. They should feel very confident in what they're prioritizing based on the direction and the vision of this board and the district.
And I began saying that I'm here representing the steering committee, and I want to go back to them. There are a number of people, some of whom are here with us tonight, who spent countless hours, many of them in this very room, late into the afternoons, wrestling with what are the right questions to be asking the community? What do all these data actually represent for us? How do we find order in all of this information? How do we place some strategic bets on very broad areas that could pay off for the community and for the school district? And how do we think about putting these in place? And so without their work, this couldn't have happened. All of the ideas in the strategic plan come directly from this amazing group of people who I would say brought energy, they brought creativity, They brought fire. There were some big debates in the middle of some of these meetings, and people really worked in a good faith effort to work through and to hear each other and to try to get to something on the other side that was even more powerful than individual ideas when it came into the room. And so I want to thank them, but I also think it'll be important that your strategic plan acknowledge that these amazing people who captured all the other voices that contributed to this, but who did the heavy lifting for well over a year to come to the strategic plan that we're bringing to you tonight.
So I want to thank Dr. Lemons. As I indicated to you at the outset of this process, he kind of doesn't really do this as a gig anymore. He's far beyond, and I had to tap into all of my connections and favors to pull him into district to help lead this process, because he was a tremendous facilitator and designer of the process for us, and has made many trips back into state to do this, because he's not local anymore. He once was. But he's not local anymore. So coming even back in this evening from out of state to present this to all of you. So I just truly want to thank you for the partnership.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
Thank you, Dr. Lemons. So again, if we have any questions, we're going to filter them through Superintendent Medancy. Will you be visiting us again?
I have the meeting in 2 weeks blocked
Okay.
off if you need me here, and I'm hoping that I get invitations well in the future, and I have to make sure that I block out the weekends of the Apple Harvest Festival for next October.
Okay. Well, I thank you. I thank the steering committee. I think we all understand the complexity of bringing all these diverse groups together, all these diverse opinions, and all these people together, and coming through with a final plan. So I think we'll have questions. If we do, we'll give them to Mr. Medancy, and we'll hopefully.
I will share any questions I receive
Okay.
with the board, with the whole board.
Okay.
And-
Similarly, what we do with the budget, so
Yes.
that,
Yep.
okay, we can do the same thing. Okay.
I
Yeah.
just had a comment.
Sure.
Again, nothing long, I promise.
Okay.
But Dr. Lemons, from the interview that I had with you, from your overall presentations throughout this process, it seems long. We've been doing this a long time.
Yeah.
You have been an absolute pleasure to have looking into this, to be reflecting with the folks in our community. I do find that when you come from a place of, we'll call it like healing, again, we know that we do a good thing here, and we know that what we're doing is the right thing. How do we make it better, right? And how do we continue on that path of polishing versus, okay, this is broken, and start running around with a hammer trying to fix everything, where again, it could be massaged out and we could get there. This is a testament to that, the fact that you were able to herd so many cats in so many different committee settings.
Your words, not mine.
Well, yeah, I'll own that. But again, to a certain degree, making sure that people stayed on topic, we're listening to each other. This is tremendous. I don't know of a single instance in any of our town boards where we've had such a clear way of, okay, this is how we're going to start looking at things. These are the things that are important to our community. And, these are the ways that we're going to start trying to measure them and go forth. So, thank you for this.
Thank you. And again, credit to the steering committee that really did the work. So
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
And we will not be offended if you duck out knowing that you have a trip.
We won't? Okay, just.
I'll be a little upset, but that's all right.
Okay. Thank you again. Moving on to new business, proposal to modify parking lot at Strong Elementary School. Looking for a motion?
Move that the Board of
Oh, go ahead.
Move that the Board of Education approve the proposal to modify parking lot at Strong Elementary School as recommended by the administration.
Second.
Any discussion? Sean?
Yeah, just a couple of concerns. I was hoping Mr. Romano would be in the room tonight, but.
He is.
Mr.
He is.
Romano, is he? Oh. Hi, Peter. Yeah, please, if you'd come up, I'd like the board to hear, obviously, you know, we have your memo in front of us, and I'd just like the board to hear and the public to hear as well, for the record, the challenge in modifying that entrance and that parking. Out of committee, we basically charged with extending the barrier that exists between the parking spaces and the ingress egress driveway at Strong. And the revised proposal came back with an inability to do that. Can you just explain that to us?
Sure. What happens is, as you get further into the lot, it actually curves towards where the parking is. So you won't have enough room. If you put an island there, a car won't have enough room to actually be able to back up and get out. You would lose about 5 spots. Or we could still put an island, but the first 5 spots, which are the ones you're probably most concerned about, would still be, you would lose those 5 spots because you couldn't put an island there. The alternative is we can put a stop sign for the people who are coming out, so they have to stop, so they'll be going very slow while a car might be backing out. And obviously, we will hatch all those areas, just like it would be an island. We would do line striping, hatching. So it gives a very good visual that, you know, there's a reason you gotta be cautious here.
Okay, yeah, and, you know, to speak to that, that was the committee's concern, was a safety concern.
Sure.
Right? To avoid liability, to avoid accidents of cars pulling out of those angled spaces, given the confines of that driveway. So it's your opinion and design that with striping and with signage that we can basically mitigate that safety risk that we identified in the proposal.
Yeah, I believe so. The vehicles that would be coming out are all the teachers and staff. It's not like it's the general public that might not have the understanding that the extended parking lot is, you're gonna have people backing out. So it will be a commonplace for all the teachers in the back coming out. They'll see that, and again, we'll put a stop sign that'll just add to so they be going that much slower.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Any other questions of anyone? Okay. So we have a motion in front of us. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Romano. Okay, next item on the agenda, proposal for establishment of an elementary diagnostic classroom at South End School.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this is a proposal we're bringing to you this evening that's a product of the SEED grant, which is the Special Education Expansion and Development Grant. I think I talked to you all about it at this past legislative session. What we currently have in district for our secondary students is we purchase seats with schools in Farmington Valley. So Farmington, Glastonbury, Simsbury, Southington, and any students in need of diagnostic placement will go to Farmington Valley for the period of the diagnostic placement. And, you know, during that time is where they can get very focused instruction, but more so programming and support that they need, so that either coming out of it, we can make better programmatic decisions based on the information we gather during the period of the diagnostic placement. Elementary doesn't have that. If you have a child that needs an outside diagnostic placement, very often the schools want you to commit to a seat, and if there are even seats available. And where that may happen may not be at a school that matches the needs of the student. And so that's one challenge that we have. Another challenge we have is that when we have a student in need of a diagnostic placement, if we don't have a placement for them, and they're in their home school during the period of time they need the diagnostic placement, if there are periods of dysregulation, of crisis, or what that may be, all of the staff in that school is called to respond, the support staff, to those types of instances, and it takes them off of their caseloads. And that can last quite a while, depending on, well, you know, how long it takes to get the programming in place and address the child's needs, if you can't even do that within their home schools. Another challenge we have here is we have students sometimes that are new to district that we know very little about. And sometimes prior to making a decision on an appropriate program for them, we want to gather as much information as we can. And so this allows us to do that in various ways. The program here will be staffed by a full-time special education teacher, 2 applied behavioral analysis therapists, and a full-time school psychologist. In the proposal, there is a typo, is a 0.5, but the number, the dollar that's there is the true amount that it would cost for a 1.0. So I just want to be clear with that. We feel like we might need a 0.5 for the diagnostic placement, but we also realize that with school psychologists, you're never going to get a 0.5 school psychologist. And so, you know, the back end to that is we often have times where we may have a particular school psychologist who is inundated with amounts of evaluations that need to be done, whether it's triennial evaluations or initials. You might have a school psychologist that's out for a period of time, whether it's medical leave, maternity leave, what have you. We don't have substitute school psychologists, so it certainly won't go to waste in terms of having that extra support in place. But we think this is kind of a win-win for students that need that focused support and a place to be. And, you know, the staffing levels are intentional in order to help those students. And it also helps those classrooms where maybe the regular education teacher isn't equipped to help the student succeed in the diagnostic placement, or nor do we have the staffing in place. And sometimes I'm getting calls quite often from families when a child's continually in crisis saying, what's going on? Why is this child staying in the classroom? You know, when are they going to be moved? Well, they should be moved when and if they need to be moved, first of all. And second of all, I would say when we know what's best for the child. It's not something to do just because there are disruptions. It's something to do because, you know, we've identified a need and we want to program appropriately for it. So I think this is something that's very innovative in the fact that, to my knowledge, it doesn't exist in other districts. It is going to be fully grant funded. Very little risk because if at the end we decide that we're not going to continue with it, kids aren't meant to stay in this placement anyways. It's meant to be for a period usually around 4 to 6 weeks or 45 days. So it's not a permanent placement for students. It's something that parents would have to agree to through the PPT process. We can transport, we can modify the school day. There are some students that's part of the strategy, you know, to kind of build their stamina of a school day. We can offer direct, both the therapy, we can do the evaluations there, we can do observations there, and we can provide the explicit instruction that's needed. So it's something where we want to give a try to, and it would be fully grant funded. So all of the costs that you see here would be none to the operating budget.
And this is what this seed is supposed to be all about from the state.
So from the actual statute, the funding shall be expended on special education purposes, which is further defined as the direct provision of special education and related services to students, Tier 2 interventions, academic and behavioral interventions, the hiring and salaries of special education teachers, paraeducators, and behavioral and reading specialists who work directly with students, equipment purchase, maintenance, or curriculum materials. Does not include, you cannot use this grant for any administrative costs, and you cannot use this for any third-party contracting. So you have to do this with your own staff. And so that was another reason specifically for our staff. Obviously, the intent of this legislation is for districts to be able to build capacity from within. And so we think that this is a worth the investment in this grant dollars.
Mr. Darrenowski.
Yeah, I'm going to move it along. I'll move that the board approve the proposal to establish the elementary diagnostic classroom at South End School.
Second.
Take your pick. Okay, questions, Mr. Brown?
Yeah, we had some concerns brought to us by parents this year, and I think this is a step in addressing some of that. Very much in favor of this. Your story before about the dyslexia conference, I think, points out how, and wasn't just Southington, your numbers and your story, but how students are sometimes missed, and this should help us to do that more. So I'm very much in favor of this.
Okay.
I just think this is a long time in coming, and I'm very happy that we're doing it in our town for our students and for our families. I think this is something that hopefully will become well-rooted in town and will grow. We need this. We need this badly.
So kind of two-part question. How many students are designed to be accommodated at one time per se? Because I would assume like it's not that it shuts off, like, okay, if somebody's, a student's in this program and now it shuts off for 6 weeks.
Yeah,
because
your number would ebb and flow depending on the amount of students, the needs of the students, and the length of the diagnostic placement. And so you may have upwards of 5 or 6 students at any given time. You may have as little as 3 during a period of time. There's other purposes that the program can serve. They can go out into other schools and observe, given some of the support there of whether certain students might benefit from a diagnostic placement. They can offer on-demand PD for staff who may have a student at their school but not within the diagnostic placement. And they can also provide some feedback and direction, relative to the process.
And then the second part of my question is, I understand that this is grant funded currently. Is there any potential to, I guess, I don't want to say try and make money with the program, but to allow a program like this, where if it is successful, to be sort of self-running, where, again, like say at New Britain, you just mentioning like having to, I guess, purchase seats for other programs. Is this something where we could potentially utilize that?
So I'm going to be a bit selfish.
Yeah.
And say no.
Okay.
And only because I think we need to focus on the needs of our students right now, and we need to get better at doing that.
Yep.
And if we're in the business of trying to take others when maybe we're not in a position to meet that success just for the funds, I wouldn't support that. One thing I did learn about the grant is that if this is, and this is for us, if this is the initial program that we're introducing through SEED, you can fund this into perpetuity with SEED money year over year. So there won't be a fiscal cliff associated with it. Let's say it is successful and we want to do this year too, we can continue to use SEED funds. If for some reason, because the SEED funds can only be used to supplement, not to supplant. You guys remember this from our Besser days.
Right.
But they're very specific. And if for some reason it does supplant something that exists, there's a tremendous penalties that come out of your education cost share grant that comes to the town if they find out that you're using it to offset positions that previously existed or programs. So, but because it was initiated through the SEED grant, it can be funded year over year by the SEED grant.
So it can continue, even though it's not new, it's
Correct.
won't be new after, if it continues.
If every district started a program and it was successful and then you had to end it and absorb it into your operating budget, you
You
create a
would-
recurring
yeah.
fiscal cliff every
Yeah,
year that
yeah.
you introduced a new program.
Well, and that's ultimately what I was concerned
Yeah.
about. So
Yeah.
as long as we have a way of, I'd hate
funding
to
it.
introduce a successful
no.
situation and then.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Sean?
Yeah, and I just want to real briefly say that it's so fantastic to receive the financial backing through a SEED grant to do what this district has been doing for a long time, which is taking care of its own youth student population and finding intelligent, intuitive, groundbreaking ways, to care and educate for our students. So I just want to say thank you for applying for and receiving this grant, because it continues the work that has been started a long time ago. So thank you.
Okay.
And lastly, I just want to give a lot of the credit here to Mrs. Oresco. As you'll see the proposal in front of you, this is her work. And so while I can, speak to it and support it, this is something that she spent a lot of time on. Just briefly for the public, and I know you're about to vote, but I think this is important. The establishment of an elementary diagnostic classroom is intended to provide targeted, specialized support for students within complex learning and behavioral needs who require intensive assessment intervention and before determining the most appropriate long-term educational placement. This diagnostic placement will enable the district to conduct comprehensive, multidisciplinary evaluations within a structured educational setting, implement individualized interventions aligned with diagnostic findings, reduce out-of-district placements by accurately identifying and addressing student needs in district, and supporting teachers and families through detailed progress data and collaboration. So thank you, Mrs. Oresco, for your work with us.
Well done.
Thank you. Yes, very well done.
So you have a vote on the floor, I'm sorry.
Okay, that's quite all right. Anybody else? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you all. Next, the first reading for policy 3541, transportation. Policy 5131.911, school climate, first read. Policy 5141.21, administering medication, also a first read. So if you have any questions, please filter them back through Mr. Bajewski. A job description approval, sir?
Move that the Board of Education approve the job description presented by the administration for the therapy department lead.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Testing and balancing services for IAQ assessment at 3 schools.
I can make that motion.
Okay,
Move that the Board of Education approve the testing and balancing services for indoor air quality assessment at 3 schools as recommended by the administration.
Second.
any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Public communications. Anyone from the public wish to speak? Please give your name and your address.
Robin Boschman, 175 Farmingbury Drive. My oldest son's story began early. I begged for help in kindergarten and first grade and was denied. In second grade, I paid for a private ADHD evaluation, and only then did the district create a 504 plan that never met his needs. Interestingly enough, no one ever raised a concern about reading. In middle school, after years of helplessly watching him struggle, I paid for another private evaluation that showed he was dyslexic. He was reading at a 5th grade level, 3 years behind, and nobody noticed. Once identified, he was outplaced for intensive reading instruction, which cost Southington $84,601 for the year and a half that he was at Ben Browns Academy. When the district brought him back to high school, we learned his struggles weren't just academic. The years of failure had broken his trust so deeply that he couldn't step into a classroom. He was placed on homebound tutoring while continuing private structured literacy lessons paid for by Southington in the amount of $65,100. After 5 years, he closed the gap by 2 years and graduated reading at an 11th grade level, not on grade level like he should have, but exhausted and determined. The district spent a total of $204,060 on damage control, which was tuition, transportation, homebound tutoring, and private remediation. The cost of fighting my advocacy far exceeded what it would have cost to identify his dyslexia early. In doing so, Southington took something from him that can never be replaced: his chance at a typical childhood and his trust in school. Then came my daughter. In December of 5th grade, I gave the district a parent-funded neuropsychological evaluation recommending testing for auditory processing. They denied it and gave her a 504 plan that never met her needs. Later that year, after providing that comprehensive evaluation, one that didn't cost the district a dime, I referred her to special education. Instead of using the data I had already provided, the district spent $3,600 on its own evaluation, not for auditory processing. The district funded a $3,400 language literacy evaluation that confirmed exactly what I'd been saying since 5th grade. Her struggles were rooted in auditory processing. In total, the district spent $7,000 fighting the answer I gave them for free, only to circle back to the same conclusion 2 years later. Between my 2 children, Southington spent over $211,000 fighting what could have been prevented by listening to a parent. And today, as an advocate, I'm getting calls from Southington parents, and that includes parents that are employees of Southington, who are living the same story all over again. And that tells me that nothing has changed. There's a pattern here. This district waits until parents force accountability instead of doing what's right from the start. Southington had every opportunity to learn from what it did to my children, but instead it doubled down. I'm asking this board to acknowledge the problem, to see how these delays and denials hurt children and waste taxpayer dollars. I may not have any more children in this district, but I still care deeply about the feelings who do. Every child deserves the chance to succeed without their parents having to fight this hard to be heard. Thank you.
Anyone else in the public? Okay. Gentlemen, you know to give your name.
Before you yell at me, I'll state my address, name and address. Ryan Ogren, 599 Mount Vernon Road. And Josh and I were just on our way back here from Bentley, coming back wanted to stop here on our fall break and to say hello. So I just wanted to say hello to everyone. Wish you all best of luck with the elections coming up, and congratulations to Zach on entering the new role. And just want to say hello. And I know Josh has some news he wanted to share with you all. So.
Yeah. How are you? Josh Pulverari, 118 Monarch Drive. It's great to see you all again. Some of you may remember me from the robotics presentations years in the past, robotics team and our student engagement team. I hope that's still going well. I've been following along. As many of you probably know, that Ryan is the class president for the class of 2027 at Bentley. And I'm excited to share and maybe give some town pride that I was just elected as the class president for the class of 2029.
All right.
The boys of Southington have represented our town well, and we're happy to share that we've got some great leadership positions at Bentley, and we're looking forward to working with each other and representing our town over in Waltham, Massachusetts. So,
Outstanding.
Congratulations.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Keep up the good work, gentlemen. Yeah. Excellent. Anyone else in the public care to speak? Okay. Mr. Darrenowski.
Move to adjourn. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned.